Well, good morning, everyone out there in YouTube land. We are glad that you're joining us this morning. We have lots of good things happening and lots of awesome training and sharing that's going to be with us today. So as you go ahead and join us live, just go ahead and jump in that chat and introduce yourself and let us know who you are and where you teach. And then put those questions there, because I know we have a whole team there to help with any questions that you have, and we can answer those live as well. So I'm going to go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves. And this morning, right off the bat, we have celebrating conceptual understanding in the intermediate math. And Andrea, will you go ahead and introduce your team?
I'd love to. Good morning. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. I'm Andrea Higdon, your elementary math lead, here to serve you. And I'm here with an amazing panel of educators that I'll let introduce themselves. Kristen?
Good morning. My name is Kristen Gary. I am the 5th grade math teacher at Smyrna Elementary.
Karima?
Dr. Karima, sorry.
Good morning. I'm Karima Badwan. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Miners Lane Elementary.
Good morning. I am Felicia Rhodes, and I'm a 5th grade teacher at Coral Ridge Elementary.
Good morning. I'm Amber Wise. I am the AIC at Smyrna Elementary.
We are so glad to have you, ladies.
Okay. Am I sharing my screen? I think I am.
Looks great.
Okay. Get my captions on. Okay. All right. We're here to talk about conceptual understanding with manipulatives and the real world application. We're here because the National Research Council did a study titled Adding It Up in response to the lack of students in the U.S. having mathematical thinking. With the globalization of information technology, and the majority of careers in STEM fields, we must support all young people learning to think mathematically and thinking mathematically to learn. And the most empowering thing we can do is this concrete, representational, abstract sequence of learning. So as we think through JCPS and our 3 pillars, the first thing I look to is equity. We have to make sure every child has access. Soretta Hammond refers to the inequitable access of students of poverty and English language learners and students of color. And we need to support these students to move from dependent learners to independent thinkers and learners. And we do this by providing tools for success. You're going to hear Karima in a moment talk about how virtual manipulative supported her students with fractions with a number sense routine, which one doesn't belong. As I look at culture and climate, we know that part of the culture and climate is equitable access. Every student is a part, and that's important. And manipulatives raise questions, and they get students to engage, and everyone join in. As you look to the right is one of my heroes, Joe Bowler. One of the math norms is everyone can learn math to the highest levels. Our job is to give them the tools to help them see that. And then thinking about the backpack of success skills. You're going to hear Felicia and Amber talk about the prepared and resilient learners at their school as they engage in rigorous tasks and effectively communicate their learning and questions virtually. You'll hear Karima and Kristen talking about their emerging innovators and effective communicators as they engage students in a virtual field trip to Google Earth and baking cookies. As you look at this graphic on the left, it defines mathematical rigor. We know application and procedural fluency come through conceptual understanding. We reach kids with conceptual understanding by providing those tools and manipulatives and math discussions around that. The standards of mathematical practice is the graphic on the right and are equally important as the content standards. This is how we support students to think mathematically and think mathematically to learn. You're going to hear each of these ladies share how students make sense of problems and persevere solving them, and then construct their own arguments and justify. That's math practice 1 and 3. You'll also hear for students look for and make use of structure, looking at patterns, and proving them with the manipulatives. There's so much more. I hope you grab a notebook because we have a challenge for you. But first, I want to show you how to get to these tools. If you go to the NTI page and select Teacher Toolkit, then the second arrow shows you to point to Teaching and Learning, and then Mathematics Resources. From there, you'll scroll down and you'll see Virtual Manipulatives with Workspace. These are the manipulatives from the Math Learning Center, and they're available at all times for free. If you look to the left of the screen, you can also go to mathlearningcenter.org. When you access them, you can open them in the web application or you can download the app. But notice the top 4 support sharing, and our teachers are going to talk about how students are sharing their work and teachers are sharing back and forth with such ease. Now back to that challenge. We're all being pushed to being innovative during this time to reach our kids. So what's the struggle right now? Is it reaching kids synchronously or asynchronously? Is it with tools? Several are listed there. Is it during one portion of workshop, during your number sense routine or your mini lesson or work time or reflection time? As you listen to these ladies, I'm asking you to take a lens. Look at one of these areas that you would like to grow in and take away one idea to try maybe this afternoon. And with that, I'm going to pass you on to Amber.
Hi guys, as I mentioned earlier, I am the AIC at Smyrna. So I'm going to share with you all 4 ways that I have seen virtual manipulatives used by the teachers in my building, but also teachers in the district as well. This has helped their engagement, plus helped the students with that conceptual understanding piece. So the 4 ways that I've seen the virtual manipulatives used is the first through number talks and Jamboards, which is what you see on the slides. The second is by posting these Jamboards into the Google Classroom with the virtual manipulative link so that students can access it on their own time. That goes back to the equity piece that Andrea was just talking about and giving our students the opportunity to access this whenever they can. The third way that I'm going to talk about virtual manipulatives being used is through small group instruction. And then lastly, through modeling using it in pre-recorded lessons for your students. So I'll explain each of those as we go through the slides. But before we start, just a little bit about their journey that Smyrna has taken is that we did not start NTI being able to do all of these things. But we have slowly built up our toolbox to where we can incorporate each of these 4 things. So as Andrea mentioned in the challenge, I challenge you guys to find one thing from our session today and go for it. And each of us here today will be there to support you in any way we can. So let's dive into the 4 different ways that I've seen virtual manipulatives used. The first, as I mentioned, was through the Jamboards. And one of our teachers, 4th grade teacher, Dr. Brewer, she actually learned about Jamboards through the Digital Learning Channel. And she started doing it the very next week after seeing it. And she has used them in 2 different ways through her number talks. The first way is how many ways can we represent 320? And if you see on this yellow sticky note here, there is a link that the students would copy and paste into their web browser, and then that would take them directly to the virtual manipulative link where they can create how many ways to represent 320, and then they would copy that back to the Jamboard. It's super easy for them to do. There's a button down at the bottom called Share. They just click that button, copy their image, and paste it directly to the Jamboard. The other way that you see on here on the right side of your screen is the teacher actually used the virtual manipulatives and the students in this one. So she created a pattern using the virtual manipulatives, and then students have to determine what that pattern is and what the next 2 arrays would look like in the pattern. So on this one, she didn't post the link in a sticky note. What you would do is post it into the chat room of your Google Meet. And I think that way is a little bit better because if you do it that way, all the students have to do is click on the link and there's no copying and pasting. They just click the link and it takes them directly to the virtual manipulatives. So in both of these sessions, the teacher was doing it synchronously, so in real time with her students where they worked on it together. However, you could easily copy the link to your Jamboard into your Google Classroom, and students could access it on their own time. So the third way that I'm going to talk about virtual manipulatives being used is through small group instruction. This is another one of our teachers, Mrs. Simon, and she's a fourth grade teacher as well. And she's continued to do small group instruction through this NTI process, which I think is just amazing. On the left side of the screen, this was one of her first sessions that she did, and she was using paper and pencil at the time, which is fine. The lesson went great. She posed a word problem for her kids, and they worked together to solve it using multiple strategies. They were engaged. They were using their talk moves. I mean, it was like being in her brick and mortar classroom. So after it was over, and we praised her for all the great things that she was doing, we also reflected on how could we improve it. And one of the ways that we talked about was through using virtual manipulatives. You know, before, how did we really know what her students knew? You know, we were asking them why, and she was asking them to justify, but how could you really see? You can't walk around the class like you can in the classroom and see what they're doing. So we were talking about using virtual manipulatives, and she did it. So on the right side of the screen, you see that she used the fraction app virtual manipulatives to show comparing fractions. And she used that semi-concrete bar model or area model. And from there, she went into the more of the abstract way of using equivalent fractions and the least common multiple. But as you can see, the fractions in the bar model are the same fractions that she used for her abstract. She used that guiding process so that the students could really see, okay, all of these fractions in that abstract way really are equivalent. So if I look at the two that have the same denominators, the least common multiple, all I have to do is look at the numerator and I can determine which one has the bigger parts and therefore is the bigger fraction. So the last way that I wanted to talk about using virtual manipulatives is through the pre-recorded lesson. And this is actually from a teacher, not in my building. This is from a teacher at Carrick Elementary. Her name is Danielle Warren. And she used the manipulatives as a way to model for her kids' division. So unfortunately, before we left the school buildings, she did not have a chance to teach division. So she didn't want to jump straight into the abstract way. So she used the manipulatives to help her students really understand that fair share model and why 123 divided by 3 equals 41. She went through and she pulled out all of her 10s and then her 1s, but really show the kids the 3 groups of 41 equals that 123. So there's tons of different ways you can use these manipulatives, guys. Just find one of these ways in here today and just try it. And I'm going to pass it on to Karima.
Hello, my name is Karima Badwan. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Miners Lane Elementary. I'm just going to share a few ways that I've been using virtual manipulatives with my students and a few real world connections we've been able to make during NTI. I'll start off by saying that the Math Learning Center is a phenomenal resource for your students to have access to the tools that they need to be successful right at home, because we know they don't have base 10 blocks and all those other tools that we normally use. So this would be great for them. A few ways I've been using the Math Learning Center are through Google Slides to create lessons for students and assignments. The 2 pictures that you see on the screen are examples of rounding that I created for a pre-recorded lesson. The great thing about the Math Learning Center is that you can copy the image that you created in Math Learning Center and paste it into a Google Doc or a Google Slide, or you could save the image and even put it in a Google form. But the real game changer with the Math Learning Center is that you can actually copy the link, like Amber said earlier, and share it with your students so that they have access to the same tools that you used in your lesson. Another great tool I know we've heard a lot about recently is Flipgrid. It's a great tool, especially right now. Not all my students are able to get on Google Meets for a number of reasons, but Flipgrid provides them with the option to complete the math at their convenience and still provides them students. So I shared a Flipgrid. One of my students recorded. She did a really great job at being creative with math manipulatives. She found materials she had at home, such as like Starburst or coins, and she got her little 3-year-old little brother involved. So it's super cute. If you get a chance to watch, check it out. You will not be disappointed. But there's a great new feature with Flipgrid that allows students to actually share their screen. So you can link the Math Learning Center into your topic, and students can be working in the Math Learning Center and show all the work they completed through the recording by sharing their screen. This is going to be much better for us as teachers, because rather than them just holding up a paper after the fact, we can see them in the actual learning process. In the next slide, you can see that another way that I've been using Math Learning Center is connecting it through Which One Doesn't Belong. The one you see on the screen was actually used during a Google Meet, and I also linked the video for you to watch at your convenience. But what I love about these tools is that you're able to support student thinking with something as simple as a visual. So using the fraction bars, my students were able to explain their reasoning and get a clear understanding of why their answer made sense. One of my students was even able to make the connection that 5/3 is 1 2/3 with the help of the math tools. So my students love these problems specifically because there's not really a wrong answer as long as you can defend it. You can also get creative and make your own Which One Doesn't Belong through the Math Learning Center, like I did at the bottom of the screen. Those visuals are also great for them to really get their thinking process going. So I linked the website for you at the bottom. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely give it a try with your students. I know they will love it. In the next slide, you can see that I have also began integrating read alouds with math for my pre-recorded lessons. So this allows for a much deeper understanding of the concept. I know I miss read alouds, and I know my students really love being read to. So this allows us to connect the reading and math, which is really great to do. But one example was I recorded Jack and the Beanstalk, and I compared it with multiplicative comparisons, and the visuals from the text and the actual examples allowed students to fully grasp the concept. For example, like the difference between the height of the giant and Jack, that was a really good comparison for them to get it. We also used circumference and all the king's tens to review place value. They're all available for free through Epic. And in the last slide, you can see a few real-world connections you've been able to make through virtual trips through Google Earth. This is a really fun way to integrate math. You can have students complete an elapsed time problem to see what time they would be returning or estimate how many miles they traveled to the nearest 1,000. They could add or subtract the total distance traveled. The options are really limitless. I took my students on a trip to Hawaii on Friday, and we started at Miners Lane Elementary and traveled all the way to a major volcano. At the end, students were able to watch me as I made my own homemade volcano erupt. So students were sharing a lot of really great things throughout that they noticed, such as the shape of Miners Lane. They were really surprised that it was like the shape of a Y, and the distance between Hawaii and Miners Lane. But once again, you can make so many math connections, and you can once again connect Math Learning Center with it. Below, I linked some videos for you of the tools that I shared today to help you in using them yourself. If you need any support with anything, feel free to reach out to me via email or Twitter. I'm more than happy to help. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to pass it on to Felicia.
Hello, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, I am Felicia Rhodes, and I teach 5th grade at Coral Ridge Elementary. And I'm here to share a few ideas and show you how I've been using virtual manipulatives during NTI. Manipulatives are a game changer. For some students, it helps to level the playing field. Abstract concepts are essential in doing math. But that being said, abstract concepts are also a source of difficulty for our students who struggle with understanding even some of the basic math concepts. That's where manipulatives come into play. Manipulatives allow students to showcase their understanding of abstract math concepts. During the course of NTI, I've used multiple virtual manipulatives in individual and small guided math lessons. Back in the day, most classrooms only consisted of physical manipulatives, something that you can put your hands on. Nothing is wrong with that at all. I'll still use them in my classroom today. However, now classrooms and our homes have been more equipped with a wide range of technology that can access the internet. As a result of that, virtual manipulatives are becoming very common, and right now we really need that, which lends me to talk about the things I've been using during NTI. There are a lot of virtual manipulatives out there to be used. A few of my go-tos are Didact's virtual manipulatives and Toy Teacher. On both of those, don't be alarmed, there is a calculator. And I know that most of you don't want all your kids using a calculator, but for some, it is a handy tool for those who really struggle. Now I'm going to show you how I use virtual manipulatives during NTI. For decimals, I like to use Didacts. It's a very powerful tool in regards to place value. During this lesson, students will read the number in word form and then build it with manipulatives on the Didact site. Students tend to struggle because understanding place value is anything but simple. However, manipulatives allow the students to move from concrete understanding to abstract. I also use Didact's virtual manipulatives when working with patterns. Some students are able to look at a pattern and are able to generate an answer very quickly, while others can't. This tool allows them to build onto what they see so they are able to then find the answer to the next pattern in the sequence. Now everyone is able to feel successful. Toy Teacher is another great source for virtual manipulatives when thinking about which site that you would like to use when creating lessons. Sometimes struggling learners wonder why they need to learn something because they can't see the connection to their life outside of school. In this lesson that's entitled Money, it gives you a real life situation, buying food at the concession stand. Toy Teacher gives you movable pieces, dollars and cents, which allows the teacher to feel, or the student to feel that they are really buying something at the basketball or the baseball game. Some of my parents really put her daughter to the test. She informed me that she told her daughter that if she wanted to purchase something from the convenience store, that she would have to use her own money and count it out all by herself. Her mother stated that it took a while. The cashier was very patient, but she got the job done and was very proud of herself. During the course of the year, she has really struggled with math, but using these virtual manipulatives in and out of the classroom to add decimals has really paid off, and I am very proud of her for that. The last lesson that you see I've used comes from Toy Teacher as well. Students are able to draw their own shapes. They really love doing that. In this guided math lesson, students were able to build all of the quadrilaterals by following the attributes that were described to them. I also let them try to come up with different shapes that were unheard of, and they had a ball doing that as well. Some virtual manipulatives give students this capability of saving their work. We can now take this a step further by sharing how they solve their problem with one another. Now we are teaching them to become effective collaborators. With this, they are being exposed to different ways of learning. As Amber mentioned above, things can be shared by Padlet, Jamboard, or even by making a video with Screencastify or Flipgrid. If you need any help, please don't hesitate to contact me by email. I look forward to sharing more ideas with you. Now I'm going to pass it off to Kristen.
Hello again, everyone. As I said before, I am Kristen Gary, the 5th grade math teacher at Smyrna Elementary. And I'm here today to kind of talk to you guys about how I use real-world manipulatives with the virtual support that some of the ladies prior to me have talked about. So engaging our students synchronously and asynchronously has been a major challenge through NTI. One of the ways that I am trying to hurdle this challenge is via Google Meets. So what a typical week looks like for my classroom is I will teach a mini lesson at the beginning of the week with as many kids as can come, but we know that in NTI, not everybody's going to be able to show up at the same time. So of course it's recorded, and then the kids have the opportunity to go back and watch later. And even some of the kids that are in the live meet are able to go back and rewatch to try to pick up on some skills. Afterwards, the students would engage in their work for the week, which is going to directly relate to the lesson that I have taught. During this time, they're going to use their strategies to apply at home with their families, and then try to work through a productive struggle that way. Afterwards, that's not where I leave them. I am live for several hours throughout the week in which they can pop on and they can ask any questions that they may have. Sometimes the questions end in a couple of guiding questions from me just to kind of get them right back on the right track. Sometimes I have to reteach in a smaller group based off the child's specific needs in the classroom, just as we would in our regular classrooms. A lot of times it ends in us playing games via the virtual manipulatives that you've seen here. And sometimes it's even a matter of us scrambling around the house to find a deck of cards, or as Karima said, some Starburst or some coffee beans or whatever, just as stuff that they have at home to make it accessible to them. The use of these real world manipulatives are going to give students direct access to the content. I'm going to show you a video in just a second where I engage my students in a cooking lesson. But unbeknownst to them, I was really introducing the idea of dividing fractions, something that we were not able to get to during our time at school. So I'm going to watch this video, or I'm going to let you watch this video for just a second.
Sorry, I'm pulling that up right now.
3/4 of a cup of sugar. So I'm going to get my sugar out. But I have a problem, guys. The only measuring cup I could find today was my 1/4 measuring cup. So if I need 3/4 of a cup of sugar, how many of these guys am I going to have to fill up with sugar? 3. Show me your fingers. Why 3? Gabby, why do you think 3?
I think 3 because if you add 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, it all adds up to 2/4.
What do you guys think about what Gabby just said? I agree. I like it. Cool. Okay, so she's telling me that I can say 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4, and that's going to give me my right amount of sugar. Yes?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. So when you are baking, when you're cooking, it's a little bit different. You can be a little crazy with your spices and stuff, but when you're baking, you want to be pretty precise. So I have a butter knife, and I've scooped up a good amount here, and I'm just going to kind of level it out back in there so that I'm sure that I have 1/4 here. Okay, so count with me. This is 1/4. 2/4. 3/4.
3/4.
What do you think? Good? Perfect. So as you can see, my kiddos really enjoyed that. They were very engaged throughout the whole thing, and making that content relevant and relatable has amped up that engagement tenfold. I even had a family that was baking the cookies right on the other side of the screen, right along with me. They were mimicking my every move, asking questions. It was just a beautiful thing. I was also able to use the Math Learning Center virtual manipulatives, as you can see here, to go back and to kind of semi-concrete support students who were struggling with this concept after the fact. Using these real-world manipulatives they've been key in my classroom, and I hope that that's something that you will try out. Along this journey of NTI, I've discovered that high interest is everything, and that when students can relate to what I'm doing on screen, they're way more likely to try it at home. When planning for these experiences, I try to think of how I use math in my everyday life, baking, elapsed time, building things. There's so much math out there. So if you are not a super tech person, that's totally fine. Just think about how your kids are already doing math at home, and then help them to see that, hey, you're actually doing math. I know you think you're just cooking right now, or you're just, timing out the video on TikTok, but you're really doing math here. Just help them to understand that math is everywhere, and I hope you will try something to do with your kiddos at home. Back to you, Andrea.
Okay, as you heard from these 4 amazing educators, I love this phrase, and I've been saying it a lot. Perfect never gets off the paper or across the screen, but they shared some pretty amazing ideas, and I know you all have many innovative ideas too. So these ladies and many more are going to join us for a Twitter chat tonight at 8. All you need to be doing is following me, and the questions will stop dropping at 8, and we'll go from 8 to 8:30 and share with one another and build our math community. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. You guys are awesome, and I learned a lot even from watching you again today. It's being able to watch things multiple times helps, and I want to remind you, you have that power of pause on JCPS Digital Learning. So thank you, ladies. You guys are awesome and keep rocking it out. And I know that as you guys continue to do this, you're going to innovate. And I hope that anybody out there watching is on Twitter, and you will go ahead and use the hashtag JCPSDigIn. And that way we can all learn from one another. And that's digital innovation for JCPS. And by doing that, we learn from one another. And I know, thank you, ladies, for saying, can you reach out to me and via Twitter? And that actually helps because it breaks down those silos for everyone else to then say, oh, I know that. I need that question too. So thank you, ladies, for doing that, because we can all, like I said, learn from one another. So I hope you guys have a great day.